Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The Indian government has announced the rules of implementation of the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act. And this particular act was passed back in 2019 by the Modi government, and the government spokesperson has said that the Modi government announces the implementation of the Citizenship Amendment Act. It was an integral part of BJP's 2019 elections manifesto. Now, this development comes just before the announcement of the schedule for the upcoming general elections in India, which are scheduled to be held in April and May. The Indian opposition parties have criticized this particular move by the Janata Party government for taking the political gains from this move. This law has also been criticized as exclusionary, anti-Muslim, and against the spirit of the Constitution of India. Also, keeping this particular thing in view, the Indian Union Muslim League has filed an application in the Supreme Court of India requesting a stay in the implementation of this controversial law. Also, protests have erupted in a number of states, especially when we talk about the state of Assam and Kerala. Now, what makes this particular law controversial, and what is the timing that the Indian government, the Indian authorities are following? Is it actually aimed at making an impact on the outcome of the upcoming general elections in India? We'll be taking analysis on this. And also, in other development, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has released an investigative documentary that is titled as Inside an Alleged Plot by the Indian Government to Kill Sikh Activists in Canada. Now, this particular documentary, this 1 hour long documentary, has revealed shocking revelations and shares overwhelming evidence suggesting that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi personally ordered the killing of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar and directed the murder for hire plot for Sikhs for Justice leader Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. All these aspects are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Saud, is Foreign Affairs expert. Dr. Saud, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also on Skype, we are honored to have been joined by Brigadier Retired Saad Mohammed. He is Senior Analyst. Brigadier Mohammed, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Later on in the show, we'll be joined by another participant. I'll be introducing him as he joins in. Let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Saud. Now, going on the very basics, what this law basically talks about, what it actually provides, and why it is called as exclusionary and anti-Muslim in particular. I come to the aspect of being unconstitutional as well later.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, this citizen law that has been passed back in 2019, as you have said, actually it grants the citizenship status to people from 3 countries who have migrated to India before December 2014, Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan. But the most controversial, or you can say discriminatory clause of this act is that anyone who is non-Hindu, he won't be granted any citizenship. So primarily we see, if you look at these 3 countries, the Hindus who had migrated to India before 2014, they had been granted the citizenship, but non-Hindus, I don't say that the Muslims, they migrated, but maybe Christians, Buddhists, the other minorities, they might have migrated to India, but they had been denied this under this act, the citizenship of India. So in that particular context, this is discriminatory, because whenever laws are made, they are made for everybody. They are not discriminatory towards a particular segment of society, to a religious minority, or anyone who thinks or the state thinks they should not be incorporated into the broader strata of the society.
So by looking at these countries, the list of these 3 countries from which the immigrants could be provided the citizenship through naturalization within a time period of 6 years, right? Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Yes.
Is it a surprise that all these countries happen to be having the majority Muslim population?
Yes, it is, because we know that BJP's ideology and BJP's manifesto, in fact, the policies had always been anti-Muslim. Whether, if we start back from 2002 when the Ahmedabad Godra incident happened in Ahmedabad, and almost 2,000 Muslims they got killed over there. That was the time when Modi was the CM of Gujarat at that time, and that was the moment when Modi was projected as the national leader of India. Henceforth, we see all the policies of BJP, they are anti-Muslim, they are discriminatory towards the Muslims. And later on, when in 2014 he got elected as Prime Minister of India, we see the policies or the statements which he used to give, he started to implement those. Since that was the first time he got elected as a Prime Minister, he had certain certain benign kind of policies where he did not implement those manifestos or those statements which he used to give fully. But later on, when he got re-elected in 2019, we see he outrightly changed the outlook of the Indian so-called secular society. Now we see most of the policies and most of the laws and acts which have been enacted and implemented in India over the period of 1 decade, they are primarily anti-Muslim. So here again, it's actually all these countries, since they are the Muslim majority country. If you look again, if you go back and we dig out the Kautalia's ideology, BJP is actually driving its foreign policy manifestation primarily within the region or the immediate neighbors through that particular ideology. And that ideology says that your neighbors are always your enemies and neighbor is your friend. So I think this act has not been implemented on the citizens who migrated, let's assume from Sri Lanka, from Nepal or Bhutan, but particularly from these 3 Muslim countries. So I think the BJP's narrative is anti-Muslim.
And also specifically when you talk about the Rohingyas from Myanmar, the Muslim population, I mean,
yes.
if there is a justification on the part of the Indian authorities that it actually primarily focuses on those minorities which have been persecuted in their countries, would be given the citizenship. So what about those being persecuted in Myanmar in form of Rohingya?
Well, I think it was 17th or 18th December, 3 months ago almost, one of their religious leaders, he stated that he actually pursued the military junta of Myanmar to kill the Muslims, not to spare them. They instigated them, in fact, to kill the Muslims over there. So overall, it was a call for a genocide. They said that you should keep killing the Muslims.
It was not taken into account by the Indian authorities on
Yes,
that front.
obviously.
Right. Let me proceed with the discussion. Let me bring in Brigadier Mohammed also into the discussion. Brigadier Mohammed, what sort of impact do you think after the implementation of this particular controversial law will have on a considerable chunk of Muslim population within India?
Let's go back in history, and almost 100 years back, Qaiser, who used to be a proponent of the Hindu-Muslim unity as part of the Congress party, got disappointed and felt that even a secular organization like the Congress party, or those who professed secularism in the Indian National Congress, were found to be pro-Hindu. And Muslims were not given that equal status, and that's why Qaiser parted ways with the Indian National Congress. The Indian National Congress was still, not as rabidly anti-Muslim as the BJP is, especially Mr. Narendra Modi. The law that this Indian Citizenship Act, while it says so that non-Hindu migrants will not be accepted as into the Indian citizenship. However, the Muslim population of India is also under threat, because the law says that if a man is asked, he is supposed to prove his citizenship. Now, how does a poor man who is uneducated or in the lower strata of the society, if you ask him to prove that he is a national of some country, say in Pakistan, if somebody is asked to prove his nationality, it will be very difficult to prove that. So those who have been living in India for hundreds of years have also now come under this law, and they might be asked to prove their citizenship and be deported. I do not know where, but that can happen. laws are not made community specific or person specific. Laws are made for the general good of all. And if a law is community specific or a person specific, then it is not law, it is discrimination and it is prejudice. And I do not know the impact of on the Indian society as such. India has a huge Muslim population, and disturbing those people at this point in India would be a very dangerous thing to do. So I think he is posing more danger to India than to any other country. Yes, South Asia will be affected, but more the Indian Union will be affected if the Muslims, start protesting and destabilizing India. Modi is rabidly anti-Muslim, and from his talks and from the way he has proceeded, look at what he has done in Kashmir. Whatever Jawaharlal Nehru and Sheikh Abdullah had come to that understanding, he has dismantled everything and he has gone back. The Indian Union has gone back on all the promises they made to the Kashmiri people of under Article 370 and 35A. So I think the Muslims in India are in great danger at this point in time, and it's Pakistan that we must expose this Indian design of persecuting the Muslim population of India.
Right, as you have already mentioned, do you think the Indian judiciary is going to be cognizant of the fact that it is going to lead into a big disturbance within India? As we already know for a fact that the Indian Union Muslim League has filed a petition for a stay in the Apex Court of India, and is also mentioned in its petition that there are around 250 petitions pending before the court challenging the implementation of this controversial Citizenship Amendment Act. What sort of a role do you foresee by the Indian Apex Court in this particular regard?
If I go by the track record, I don't see any hope from the Indian Superior Judiciary. Let's go back to Ayodhya case where they have, given the Babri Mosque to the Hindu extremists, and they have constructed a temple there. If you look at history, even the existence of Ram is questionable, whether he was from Ayodhya or whether he was not. Some people even question whether he was a historical figure or not. But besides that point, how can, 1,000 years later or 2,000 years later, you start saying that this was the birthplace and the mosque which was built there about 400 or 500 years back is given to them? Look what they have done in Kashmir. The Indian Union had come to understanding with Sheikh Abdullah. There was a pact signed, and they have gone back on that. So I don't see any relief coming from the Indian Supreme Court. Even if they make a song and dance about it, and there'll be some lot of controversies, and they will keep ask questions in here and there. But in the end, the decision is going to be inconsequential, and it will not benefit the Muslims in any way.
Right. What about the Articles 14 and the 15 of the Indian Constitution that have been also made part of that petition which has been filed in the Supreme Court? So if the petitioner is able to prove that this particular act is against these relevant constitutional provisions in India, do you think there are any sort of chances that the Apex Court might ask the authorities to revoke this?
Yes, they will be asking questions. I'm not saying they're going to not ask questions. But will the questions, at the end come to a decision which will be justice to the persecuted Muslim minority in India? I don't think so, because the track record thus far has not shown the Supreme Court doing such a thing. The death sentences are banned in India. They have stopped the death sentences. But Guru, the Kashmiri nationalist, was given the death sentence. So I don't see any justice coming out from no matter what. The Article 370 or 35A, both of them were part of the Indian Constitution. They were struck down by the Modi government. And worse of that, there was a commitment made to the Kashmiris by the Indian Union when Sheikh Abdullah, became part of the Indian, Kashmir became part of the Indian Union. So, if they have done anything, can you please quote anything that where the Indian Supreme Court has done justice in the case of Muslims? I don't think it's going to happen
Right,
that
right.
way.
Brigadier Mohammed, so does that particular pattern of the verdicts by the Indian Supreme Court depict that Hindutva has deeply infiltrated in the institutions of India, also, especially when we talk about the highest seat of justice within that country?
India professes to be a secular state. That's what the constitution also says. However, it's not, what happens on ground. Not even now. Even when in the initial days when Congress was running the country and it was running the country through a huge majority, uh, there were anti-Muslim riots. Muslims were being killed and Muslims were being discriminated against. Even today, if you look at the Indian Muslims, they don't enjoy the same status as that of the majority community. If they ask for their rights, the answer that they get is go to Pakistan. Now, what's that got to do with Pakistan? They were born in India, they stayed in India, they're Indian citizens. How can the government come up or ministers come up and they start telling people if you ask for their rights that they should go to India, they should go to Pakistan? Pakistan is another country. Pakistan has been here now for more than 75 years. The two countries have separated. They're not one country anymore. So, if you look at it from that angle, the Indian Supreme Court, the Indian Armed Forces, all of them have been now, affected by the Hindutva and religious extremism. People have been killed on just suspicion that they are carrying cow meat from point A to point B. They've been lynched. They've been made to, renounce their religion under the threat of death. So, and no action has been taken. Look at the pogroms in Gujarat. How they mercilessly killed men, women, and children, and nothing has happened. Mr. Modi, who was responsible for all this, he's got away with it. He has become the Prime Minister of India. He goes around the world as if he is one of the greatest statesmen. To me, he is one of the biggest terrorists that India has produced.
Right, we are joined by another participant in the show, Mr. Raja Qaiser Ahmed, the Indian affairs expert, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Ahmed, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. What do you think is going to be the impact of the implementation of this controversial Citizenship Amendment Act on a considerable larger chunk of Muslim population in India?
Well, thank you for having invited me to participate in your show. Well, definitely this is going to have a very drastic impinging for the state and society in India. It is not just an act which is standalone or in isolation. India is being through a very strange transition, particularly after this BJP's rule 1.0 and now 2.0. Now BJP is gearing up for its 3.0. The timing of these incidents and these happenings and eventualities are very important. You see the inauguration of Ram Temple in the very year of elections, and now execution of this controversial law at the outset of the Indian elections. It speaks volume of the objectives of the Indian statecraft, apparently. And India under Modi has led to an institutional collusion. All the institutions, whether it's the judiciary, its executive, or its legislature, they have converged upon one fact, and that is to cede space for Hindutva. So this is going to have very climactic reverberations for India, and I believe this is going to lead India to a very parochial polity, and India would face definitely a lot of challenges in the coming years.
Right, Mr. Ahmed, talking about the timing of this particular move just before the announcement of the schedule of the upcoming general elections in April and May, do you think it's going to have any sort of an impact on the outcome for the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is very confident this time around, and Prime Minister Modi eyeing for the third term?
Indeed, that's why BJP has picked up this event and this timing at this very outset. So definitely this is going to have a lot of impact and it is going to amass political support and garner maybe a more robust mandate for BJP, because BJP, it feeds upon divisive rhetoric. It feeds on communal hate. And at the same time, its agenda of Hindu Rashtra, it actually builds upon these communal foundations and instituting and consolidating this hatred in Indian polity. So that's what they have done over the years, and this is what is paying them off. So that's why they feel incentivized in carrying out with this agenda. Strangely, Indian population, Indian masses, they are responding to this hate. And I must quote Arundhati Roy over here, who says that majority of the Indians are still living in the 19th century mindset. A very few of them are living into the mindset of the 20th century, and a very handful, and even a very minority is living with the mindset of 21st century. So with this kind of primitive and archaic mindset, definitely BJP is going to give a lot of challenges to its region, to the global politics, and at the same time to its immediate neighbor as well.
Do you expect any sort of positive outcome when it comes to the Supreme Court of India dealing with this particular implementation of this controversial act? There's been a petition filed for the stay in the Apex Court of India. Already one of our participants of the view, by looking at the track record of Indian judiciary, he expects the least coming out of the Apex Court regarding this particular law.
Well, I also have very negligible hope from Indian judiciary. Gone are the days when Indian judiciary was progressive, it was secular, or it used to uphold the values of composite culture. Now Indian judiciary, it has gone hands in hands with BJP. It is playing onto the tune of BJP's politics. And it is evident from the judgment of Ayodhya temple earlier. Then it has been substantiated again with this judgment of the repealing of the Article 370 of the Indian Constitution. And I believe the trend will persist. Indian judiciary is going to go. BJP go ahead onto this very drastic eventuality as well, because as I said earlier, that Modi has led to an institutional collusion. It has led to an institutional synergy in India, where all the institutions, they have been marred by BJP's Hindutva ideology. And this is evident, and this is reflective and symptomatic into the very recent happenings.
Right, Mr. Ahmed, another very important development. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has released a documentary suggesting with the solid evidence that Prime Minister Narendra Modi directly ordered the killing of the activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and also directed the murder for hire plot of the Sikh for Justice leader Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. The significance of it and the time of the release of this documentary, is it going to put a dent into the hopes of Bharatiya Janata Party when it goes into the elections?
Well, it might invite a diplomatic fallout at the structural level, at the global level of global politics. But as far as India's internal politics is concerned, I think these kind of documentaries and this kind of media onslaught onto Narendra Modi would further cement his position. Reason being that he has been actually trumpeting this narrative over the years that he has actually made India invincible. That is why the global powers, they are feeling insecure of India's position. So with this kind of polemic and rhetoric with which Narendra Modi and BJP, they has gotten ahead over the years, I think this is not going to give any kind of setback to BJP at the socio-political level or as far as electoral dynamics of India are concerned. But definitely in the very recent times, there have been happenings which had been point of concern for the international powers. Even for that matter, United States of America, they have also raised their concerns. This very happening of Canada. So this has again raised the eyebrows of international community. I think this is going to invite diplomatic fallout for India at the global level, but not significant fallout at local or maybe at internal level.
Right, your point is well taken. Mr. Ahmed, when you talk about the diplomatic fallout for India on the external front, what sort of possible manifestations do you expect? How do you expect those Western countries to respond or react to the involvement of the highest seat of the leader of the so-called largest democracy in such type of assassination plots and murders?
See, the world is largely interconnected nowadays. The global happenings, they are intertwined. For instance, the kind of the curb on press leads to the decline in the press freedom index. And if you go hard on your minorities, you lose your position in religious freedom index. So definitely India, as far as, its economic burgeoning at the global level is concerned, that is undeniable. Countries, they feel incentivized to trade with India, but at the same time, there is not only international system level, there is international society as well, where these events, they are trickling down and they are creating a steady perception regarding India, that India is a belligerent country. India has least regard for human rights, and India has developed target squads. Indian Raw has developed target squads which do this target killing across different countries. So this definitely would invite all of those forums and all of those organizations who are working with the specific mandate to raise this concern. And I believe that India would face a lot of trouble in this regard.
Right, Mr. Raja Qaiser Ahmed, Indian Affairs expert, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Saud, let's talk about any sort of chances do you see, any sort of a positive development coming out of the Apex Court of India when it comes to stopping the authorities from the implementation of this controversial law? Don't you think if it is going to have any sort of disturbance at a sheer scale when it comes to suppressing a certain specific minority within India, and already we know the protests have erupted in various states, particularly when you talk about Assam and Kerala, and also Indian opposition parties also criticizing this particular move. Shouldn't the Apex Court be cognizant of the fact that it could lead to the disturbance even on a bigger scale, and it should stop the authorities from the implementation of this law?
Ideally, yes. But practically, as the two participants have already stated, I also personally think the courts won't go against the BJP's narrative and BJP's policies. Why? Because one, as I've said that, since 2014, BJP has created certain, groups which are actually the militant groups, and they have different slogans. Some groups, they talk about the Akhand Bharat. Some groups, they have started, Ghar Wapsi Tehreek, like those Muslims and Christians who converted from Hindus. Now they want them convert back to the Hinduism. That group is also very much active over there. And we see, the cow protection bill and all that. So such kind of activities, such kind of groups which have been created over the period of time, last decade or so, I think, there is a pressure on the policy makers, on the decision makers, even on the courts as well. Everybody has to live in the Indian society. We see that the Indian society is highly polarized now. It's the hate speech is at the peak right now. So under such circumstances, and in a situation where all the polls actually, they are predicting the victory of BJP in the upcoming elections as well. So understanding, keeping all these realities into the mind, I don't think the any of the institution in India, even if that institution or individual is pro human rights, civil liberties, or all that, I don't think the institution or the personality individual would dare to have contradict with the BJP's policies.
Right. So what sort of impact it's going to have on the elections for Bharatiya Janata Party? Also, because by looking at this statement by their spokesman, it was an integral part of BJP's 2019 election manifesto. Also, we have seen they have claimed fulfilling their promises they made back in 2019 before coming to power once again. That the building of the Ram temple also, and the revocation of Article 370 and its implementation there, and now this implementation of controversial law. So is it going to give a political dividend to BJP?
Yes, it is, because
elections,
as I started with my own argument, BJP's narrative, BJP's policies, BJP's manifesto is primarily anti-Muslim. And if you look at all these three developments, they are primarily anti-Muslims. So when once they have implemented it, they implemented the two in the beginning, and this one right before the conduct of the general elections. So actually it is going to strengthen the position of BJP in India, because very recently BJP has created certain WhatsApp groups where they are circulating fake and disinformation regarding the Muslims, the minorities in fact, where the young people, the youth of India is actually triggered by those videos, those clips, misinformation, disinformation. And right now, when this act has been implemented, it would strengthen the position of BJP.
So what about the opposition? Does it have enough strength? Because the kind of statements which are coming, for example, from the Indian National Congress also, one of their spokesperson has said the time taken to notify the rules of CAA is yet another demonstration of Prime Minister Modi's blatant lies. Also, Mamata Banerjee has said after multiple extensions in 4 years, its laws implementation 2 to 3 days before the election announcement shows that it's being done for political reasons. Number of other opposition leaders saying that it is aimed at creating more divide.
Yes, you are right. But look, we have seen that 28 political parties in India, they have formed an alliance, opposition alliance against the BJP in the upcoming elections. But besides statements, it seems that these political parties are also helpless because of the narrative that has been built over there. So far, Mamata Banerjee is concerned, when the last year in Kolkata, when BJP government, it stopped the foreign funding to some of the NGOs which were working for the development of, for the betterment of the Christian community. Mamata Banerjee at that time, it did not criticize that as well. So I think everybody is very much fearful of the hate and the polarization of society in India, and they want to attract as many as voters they can in the upcoming election. They don't want to create a mess for them. So I personally think they would keep on giving these kind of statements, but practically I think they are also helpless. They won't. There's no hope that these 28 political parties group is going to do something for the minorities and overall human rights and civil liberties in India.
Right, Brigadier Mohammed, when you talk about the release of this documentary which has made some very shocking revelations of the direct involvement of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the floor of the House revealed that Indian agents which were backed by the Indian government were involved in that assassination. Also a plot, an assassination plot that was also revealed of a plot of killing a Sikh activist on US soil. I mean, how alarming should it be for the Western leaders and Western nations in particular when the Prime Minister of the so-called largest democracy in the world is directly involved in ordering such assassination attempts and murders?
I feel only political statements will come out, and they will also then, the effect will reduce with time. Now, most of these powerful countries do this. It's not only India that it does this. Hasn't the United States assassinated so many people with their drone attacks? The recent one, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard general who was killed in Iraq, and so many other. I can give you examples of these assassinations by the United States. So countries, make their policies not on based on these principles that somebody has been killed or there's a plot to kill somebody. Their policies are based on national interests. Now, India is a very big country. Economically, it's a big power. And no country in the world would like to, spoil relations with India and lose such a big market. The market, is very diverse, from military equipment to so many other technologies that India would be needing, and there are so many countries that are willing to provide. Recently, the $800 million investment plan was signed with the European countries. So I don't think so any outcome is going to come out of Mr. Trudeau's statements that he makes on the floor of the House, or someone giving out gory details of how Mr. Modi has acted. Hasn't Mr. Modi killed hundreds of Muslims in Gujarat pogroms? What has happened? He was declared a terrorist at some point in time by the United States even. But when he became the Prime Minister, all was forgotten. So these powers, they look after their interests. They don't go for principles. I don't think so anything is going to happen. If at all something is going to happen, it's going to help Mr. Modi in his elections. Because he's going to tell the people of India that, or the people of India are going to get that impression that here is a strong man who is, willing to go after all those people who are working against the Indian unity or against the Indian Union. So the extremist Hindu vote in India is going to swing in favor of Mr. Modi. I don't foresee any problems for Mr. Modi coming out of these small reports coming out of here and there,
Right.
that Mr. Modi is involved in assassinations.
Right, Brigadier Mohammed, you already mentioned that pogrom that happened in Gujarat, in over 2,000 majority of Muslims were killed. The Chief Minister of Gujarat that time was now the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. There was a documentary which was claimed to be rigorously researched by British Broadcasting Corporation that was released. Then we saw later on there was a crackdown by the Indian authorities on BBC's office within India in Mumbai as well as in Delhi. Now this release of the murder of 6 activists on Canadian soil by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So what's the significance, what's the purpose of such documentaries? What purpose do you think do these documentaries actually serve?
They can at best serve, and I think that's what they're meant for, that they know India has done it, and they know who has ordered it, and they know who were the perpetrators on their soil. When the Sikh activist Mr. Nijjar was killed in British Columbia. So they know it. It is just, these revelations or these inquiries that come to the fore is just to put a check on Mr. Modi that he does not carry out any further such acts. That's all. It is going to have no effect. There are no principles involved in this world. Now, let me give you an example. For example, West Indian, which was a non-Muslim majority, pressure was put on Indonesia to separate West Indian from Indonesia. Now, look at what is happening in Gaza. Nothing happened of this sort in West India, but they were still separated because that's a Christian majority area. What is happening in Gaza? The thousands and thousands have been killed. Children, women dying of hunger in hospitals. Hospitals have been bombed. Mosques have been bombed. Has anybody spoken out? Has anybody condemned the Israeli Prime Minister? Nobody has done that. So, these countries, especially the Western countries, they work on their interests. If it suits their interest, then they will speak of principles and they will democracy and all those things. But when it comes to their interest, they may forget everything. What have they done in Iraq? And what have they done in Syria? And what have they done in Libya? What have they done in Afghanistan? Destroyed those countries without any reason. Has anybody asked them? Has anybody taken them to task? No one. We all know why they all came here. There can be 10 documentaries. It won't affect their policies.
Right. Dr. Saud, what's your understanding? What's the purpose of such type of documentaries? Already we saw that BBC documentary explaining the role of the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi, now the Prime Minister, now this Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's documentary. What purpose do they serve?
Well, actually, I think, the Sikhs in Canada, they are in substantial number. They are a big, vote bank as well. So maybe the Canadian government is trying to, attract that vote bank for them, one. Second is, when, the killing that happened over there, there was a rage within Canada as well. You need to do something, and we know that Trudeau is one of the popular leader in Canada. So I would agree with the Brigadier Saab that international community, yes, it can be one of the arguments that they really want to sensitize international community about that killing, offshore killing. But I personally think, look at the trade volume. The G20 summit that happened back in last year in India. What is the response of the European countries so far that killing? How the Biden administration that responded. So I personally think that can be one of the political stunt so far the Trudeau's own political campaign or the election campaign is concerned, because obviously we know that Sikhs are in a substantial number in Canada. But so far international community is concerned, you can just sensitize that international community. Yeah, like Dr. Qaiser, Raja Qaiser, he described international society. You can sensitize that, but I think there won't be any solid, concrete outcome of that documentary.
So you're of the view there is no possibility of any diplomatic fallout?
No. I don't think so.
Dr. Adam Saud, Foreign Affairs expert, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype, we were joined by Brigadier Retired Saad Mohammed, a senior analyst. Brigadier Mohammed, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for being with us.